Okay.
Okay then, it's 6:02. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the annual town council meeting, Monday, July 10th, 2017. As usual, our first item would be any public comment concerning any issue that's not on the agenda.
I have.
Okay.
I've just been going through, looking at how we get building permits approved. And right now, our policy is, if you submitted plans to GDA on July 3rd, you could start building on August 17th. Isn't that right?
Yes, so for your addition, we can go sooner because it's an addition, but for a new house, that's
I'm
correct.
not talking about
Yeah.
me.
Well, I just-
That has
yes.
made it, and that has brought this to light for
Yes.
me, and I think that is too long. As I've thought about it, I think GDA can do all of the review, and if there are problems or discrepancies with the code, then they bring it to the planning commission. But I would imagine if we submitted plans, GDA could turn them around within 3 weeks, maybe?
Yeah.
And that would be like a rolling thing?
It comes down to the applicants more than anything. So if you submit a plan on, say, the 1st, within 3 weeks, we can get back to you with comments.
Yeah,
Even with Eric, I mean, with the process now, we can get back to you with comments within 2 to 3 weeks.
yeah, so if we hit the first, we're good.
What
But if we
happens?
hit the second, we're bad.
Yes, but for the most part, though, we haven't held people up because of that. I mean, you're right, but and if there's a very complicated permit, or we have that flexibility, but working with Eric and I haven't held people up that submit on the 3rd or even the 14th. It's the people that come in the day before the planning meeting and say, I want to be on the agenda, and we say,
Yeah.
look, you need to be in on the 1st. I mean,
And by no means am I saying you guys aren't doing your job or whatever. I just think that it could be better.
well, and so I guess most of the time, if we turn it around, let's say 2 weeks, so you submitted on the 2nd, so you missed the deadline, and we turned it around in 2 weeks. I got all my comments, Eric got his comments, and we got it out in a little over 2 weeks. Most of the time, it's taking applicants another week or 2 to get back to us.
Oh, imagine.
And so we're at 4 weeks, and so really, I haven't really seen us hold anyone up for a planning meeting more than about a week, is I think the longest I've seen somebody really held up.
Yeah, but I think the point is kind of clear that
Yeah.
if we followed the policy says the 3rd, if we turn it in on the 2nd or 3rd, we get it August 17th. And just kind of a question here, in the review process, would GDA be able to do, Eric, what do you review on building permits?
So there's a comment period, and I'm going to stop it right here because this has come up almost every month for the last few months. And I can take it a little personal on Eric's behalf because Eric hasn't asked or said he's too busy for anything. The only thing he is about $100 an hour less than everybody else he works with. And so to have 2 eyes on planning and to have 2 eyes on any kind of application, I think it's a great idea. Both people have missed and caught things for out the last 4 years that I know about, and also as a council. So if we want to bring this up, we'll get on an agenda item, but I do not want to spend the time to talk about it right now.
Okay, let's put it as an agenda item if we can, Lynn.
Okay, any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Pam Skinner, for the record. Signage in the town of Daniel, what's the process?
What's the process? I couldn't answer that. I do not know what legal signs we can and can't put up and what we can and can't do.
And
But
can
that's,
a homeowner association put up sign, or is it the town of Daniel?
The town of Daniel would have to put it up. The homeowners could put it up on their property, but not out in the town right away.
Okay.
Because there's state statute that requires Yeah, okay.
I'm sure there's lots of regulations, that's why I
Yes.
just didn't know what regulations, if we as homeowners association in Daniel Estates could put up any signage, but only on our property.
Correct.
1 inch on your side of the property, at the front or whatever street, whatever kind of your
Okay.
connection.
Please bear in mind our sign ordinance.
Of course.
Oh,
I'll review it.
Thank you.
My
Saves me a trip.
Anytime.
neighbor was asking about a handheld sign
That's why we hired the county to do our signs, because they know all the regulations.
on speeding.
Okay, so I can research that as
Got all
far as
those
the
regulations?
state or a town.
You know, so we have a sign regulation, but as far as those signs you're talking about, we've never really kind of dealt with a whole lot, have we? Some of
Well,
the-
like even a speed limit sign, we don't have one on our road. I'm not saying I want one, but that's an example.
Mhm.
That is something we talked to the county about, so that'd be a fairly more simple sign to do after we discussed it here as far as that was appropriate in the location.
Okay. And then, of course, the school signs on directing the public on where they can get in and out.
That will definitely be coming very soon and addressed, because, speaking of that, is the road cleaned up yet or no, or kind of, sort of?
Kind of, sort of.
Is it gonna be open for this fall?
Yes, the school is planning to. Thank you, that answers my question. Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to item number 2, which is a presentation by Jason Nolan, of updates at Heber Light Power. So Jason, go up there. Your name for the record?
Jason Norland, General Manager, Heber Light Power. And I didn't want to mess with the...
Thanks.
I might not. Thanks for having me, Council.
You're fine.
I got reviewing our franchise agreement with the town of Daniel, and I'm supposed to do this annually, so here I am.
We were wondering we were not wondering what you were going to present, so.
Oh, okay. It's just kind of an update of where we've kind of been in 2016, and I want it to be an open discussion. If you have any questions or concerns, by all means, let me know about them. In 2016, just to give you some project updates, I'm sure all of you that pay the bills know that we changed our billing and accounting software in 2016, changed over from Cassell to iView. That's been completed, and I think it's a good thing. Our auditors, when I first took over as general manager, that was one of the things the auditors really wanted us to do, is update that accounting software to more of a utility grade type system, and that's what we did. Cassell's a good system, but we were making it do things for a utility that it probably shouldn't necessarily be doing. So, second power transformer was added out of our Heber substation. I'm sure you guys all know how much we're growing, so that we added a second big power transformer in our Heber substation. That will actually help the town of Daniel out, because Heber substation is one of those that can kind of back up other substations. So, like the outage the other day that affected Daniel, we ended up switching stuff around, and actually we're feeding a portion of Daniel now out of the Heber substation. So,
I got a question. So before the big windstorm, the house, we probably had at least 2 blips that took everything out and started everything over, and then we had the windstorm, and then we had the power line, or to take out the power line. So those are obvious, but why are we getting so much fluctuation and blip? I mean, when I come home and see my microwave flashing, I know the power went out for at least a second.
yeah.
Why do we get so many?
I mean, it's a good question, and your guys' circuit is definitely one that's been getting affected a lot. In probably a 2-week period, we had 3 dig-ins on that circuit, meaning excavators that either ignored the mark and dug it up, or hit it anyway. They weren't necessarily blue stake errors, but literally they were dig-ins. And also, we set the system up because there's so much activity out there. We've dialed down relay settings so that the circuit picks it up and makes sure that we're de-energizing, so that when that type of problem happens, the guy in the trench isn't sitting there with a live cable because it came right back on. So the circuit's handling it, making sure that that fault's been cleared before it re-energizes. It's a safety thing, we do it, especially when there's a lot of human-caused outages out there, and it's just to make sure that doesn't come back on somebody that may be the fault. Does that make sense?
It does totally.
Yeah.
And knowing there's multiple digs, and that gives me the answer of, you know, if you've got 3 digs and 2 windstorms, there's 5 outages right there.
Yeah, and then the last one, the other night was literally a piece of equipment failed on us. System was on peak, and you know, that piece of equipment for whatever reason couldn't handle the load that day and melted down on us. So,
It got
Thank
replaced.
huh?
Got replaced.
It has, it's been replaced, yeah. We also added a couple of additional circuits out of our jailhouse substation. That's to take pressure off of the Daniel circuit, and be able to start splitting load a little bit, especially through the portion that kind of part Heber, part Daniels. Heber is adding substantial amounts of load to that business section on Airport Road. So it's important that we, you know, keep breaking those circuits up as they get loaded. And then we installed a new power transformer at the power plant substation. That was just due to aging equipment. We had a transformer that was built in the 60s. That just didn't look right, wasn't testing right, and so we changed it out to a newer model. And there's, as you guys are well aware, there's many ongoing underground projects and new subdivisions, and we are currently upgrading 2 major overhead feeders, one down in the Daniels area. And that's just to accommodate new load that's coming on. Make the wires bigger so that they can handle more. On the next slide, I just wanted to touch a little bit on net metering and distributed generation. It is growing pretty rapidly. You know, last couple of years we went from, you know, maybe 12, 13 net metering customers to up over 100. So we're processing 2 or 3 of these every week, it seems like. We're up to 103 total net metering customers. When we really started getting a lot of applications in, we wanted to make sure that our policy was strict enough and being adhered to. And so we did do some modifications in 2016 to our net metering policy, but they were mostly just to protect our customer, the consumer. They just weren't being explained what our net metering policy was. And, you know, the customer would get this $20,000 solar install done on their house and get their next power bill, and, you know, it was our fault because, you know, the bill was wrong. We were billing net metering policy correctly. It just wasn't explained to them by the salesman that sold them the system correctly. So now those customers have to come in, sit down with us, and be fully briefed on what our net metering policy means and what it means to them and their actual bill with the system they're looking at buying. So,
A real brief description, what is the net metering?
So net metering is literally somebody puts a solar system on their home. They get so much generation off of that. Sometimes they overproduce on generation, so the utility is acting like a bank for them. So we let them overproduce a little bit, and then their next bill, we deduct the kilowatts that they overproduce that month against their bill the next month.
Okay.
And so it's a constant net out each month with
Okay.
their generation versus what they have to buy.
And you say that was implemented in 16?
The policy has been around since, geez, long before I got there. And there were a few customers on it. As we started getting a lot of solar customer applications for net metering, we decided to really look at that.
And then
So,
I heard you did it and then you didn't want to do it, and now I'm kind of getting you might be doing it again.
oh no, we've always done it.
Okay.
We've been net metering. I think our first net metering customer was Larry Winterton when he put a little hydro on the river down there in Charleston. And so that policy's kind of been in place for that long. All we did last year was just kind of modify it, just to make sure that the customer understood what it was.
Okay.
So, currently there's about 596 kilowatts of installed solar generation by our customers on the system. And when we modified the net metering program, we instituted a feed-in tariff pilot program for big commercial customers, and we don't have any of those at this time. And feed-in tariff is completely different than net metering, meaning they still buy everything from the utility, but we buy all their generation back at a set price. So, next slide. Transmission project. Many of you might know that we built a mile of a transmission line down Highway 40. We're going to be continuing that work this year. We're going to build another mile from Coyote Lane on Highway 40 down into kind of Heber City proper, past the annexation line. And that next mile of line will be built this year. We have completed a contract with Rocky Mountain Power. They will be on one side of those poles and we're on the other. So both utilities won't be building through the valley. They'll be on just one line. And we plan on completing that project all the way to Midway in 2019. So that's another big project. Really have to have that completed by about 2022 just because of low forecast. Now wholesale power, just kind of see what the utility's growing at. In 2016, utility peaked at 39 megawatts. That's a 5% increase from our 2015 peak of 37 megawatts. And system peaks have averaged about 5% a year for the last 5 years. We're predicting, possibly today, to peak at 41 megawatts. We hit 40 megawatts a couple days last week, so this week we might actually hit our projections.
So this is the power that's being used and supplied?
This is power that's being supplied and used out on our
Used out.
system, on the
Okay.
distribution system. Next slide. Yeah.
How much can you guys produce?
We can produce on system about 20-some megawatts, depending on the time of year, because a lot of that's hydro. So in the winter, that falls off quite a bit. And the rest we get from various other sources, and we pay Rocky Mountain Power to transport it to us
Oh, wow.
on their
And
transmission.
isn't that where the intersection for the last few years was talked about bringing in more power through, and that's what you're bringing down to Heber City?
Mhm.
So what, after that's done, what will be our peak? What will be our available peak?
Once we get that transmission line built and another interconnect substation built, we're planning on building that plus 100 megawatts. And so, we, sometime between probably 80 and 110 megawatts. Some decisions are going to have to be made by some people on whether to up the voltage on that transmission system. Our system's currently 46,000 volts, our transmission. We get it delivered to us at 138,000. As load continues to grow, that'll have to be looked at on whether or not we've got voltage drop. So we just talked about demand and the peak demand. Kilowatt hours are also growing at a steady pace. So this is how many kilowatts are in each hour that we have to buy. And total kilowatt hours purchased in 15 was 169 million. 2016 we went up to 181 million, and that's about a 7% increase. And over the last 5 years, we've been growing on kilowatt hours at about 4% each year on average. And we're predicting to be just under 190 million in 2017. So you can see with the growth with the utility, it's compounded. Each year, you know, that percentage, 4% 5 years ago, it just keeps compounding. That's why the numbers continue to get so much bigger. I've included some charts just for you to look at. If you have any questions regarding them, sometimes it's just an easier way to look at this stuff. By all means, give me a call and we can talk about it. The first chart is our system load, and it's just there graphically. That's kilowatt demand. And then our actual budget and actual resource mix. So you can see our 2016 budget and where that wholesale power overlaid into an actual resource cost and where we're getting our energy from. So the Cap plant energy is internal, Heber hydros are internal, and the Heber plant energy is internal, as well as the Jordanelle energy. So that's kind of what we can generate on system. Everything else is imported into us. Hunter is a great big power plant in Castledale that we own 5 megawatts every hour. That comes in. And WAPA is an acronym for Western Area Power Agency, and that's the energy we get off of the Colorado River storage system, the big dams on the Colorado. Another, on the next slide, is our historical and projected system peaks. And so, you know, in 2017, we're kind of predicting to be just right around that 41 megawatt mark. By 2021, we're looking at being right around the 50 megawatt mark. That's just kind of the rate we're growing. You can kind of see what that trend is. And as soon as we get above 50, just so you know, we've got some window of opportunity, but it's above 50 that we really start worrying about our current transmission system, and that's why we really would like to get this line done by 2019, so that we don't have to do anything funny while we're on peak. We'll have enough capacity there to handle it. So, next is just our system description. Currently, our service area for the entire utility is 157 square miles. You can see accounts by city. Heber's still got the most accounts at 5,600, but everybody else is adding up to be about that same size. It's almost turned into a 50-50 split between Heber City and everybody else, the county, Midway, Daniel, and Charleston. We're currently maintaining and servicing 482 miles of primary line. So, and my last slide is Heber Light and Power, the people that work there, and kind of our organizational flow chart. you know, we are public power, we're in the community. I'm sure that, you know, everybody here knows at least one name on that list. If you ever have anything, any questions, concerns, feel free to get a hold of any of these people, they're your neighbors, and we'll certainly address it. So we're close, we're nearby, and we have open door policy and good customer service, so please take advantage of it. That's my report, Mayor.
Okay. Any questions from the council or public?
I just got a couple. Jason, is this Jordanelle Energy 9%, is that your third?
Yeah, yes.
That represents your third? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Lehigh and St. George get the other 2/3 of the project. And that's for the life of the debt on the project. So that's just how we crafted it because it was a little too big of a bite of the apple for us. So we let those other two municipals help us pay for the debt on that.
Harold come over and talked to the interlocal committee about the bypass route and using that line. Is that still where you're planning on running across to Midway, or is that stalled?
No, I don't think it's stalled. We're still working with planning departments, and that's clearly with all stakeholders that's kind of been, you know, that we've talked to and have expressed comment back to us, meaning Heber City and Wasatch County mainly. We would like to do that. We would like to define one route of that bypass road. So we would get going by right-of-way and easements for the north and the west side of that corridor and put the transmission line in there.
Okay, so we're still looking at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty good.
I do have one thing I thought of. So one of the council members talked to, I believe, Harold a while ago about a light at the end of 3000. Been a tough intersection for going down and taking a hard left and coming back. I think it's happened a couple of times where we thought that light might be coming in. Since you're here, is that something?
Is that at the end of 3000 and 189?
Yes.
Okay, that's gonna get addressed as we like rebuild that line coming down.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll probably wanna work with you and UDOT to make sure that intersection's lit correctly, the county possibly.
Is that like a next year kind of plan, or?
No, it should be end of this summer. We'll work on that and make sure that we, you know, engage Brandon, UDOT, and you guys, and make sure it's lit the way you want it, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Right, Alan.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna, last time you presented, it was about rate hikes.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were headed towards peak, on-peak and off-peak. Have we made any headway, and when, are we still gonna see that, and if so, when?
I think that we are moving towards time of use. And, you know, when exactly we'll get there, I don't know. We did do a rate study this year, and, you know, there was no need of an adjustment for the rates. We are looking at, you know, some of the classes, meaning like small commercial, small general service, maybe breaking that out to another class, because we've got some in-class subsidization going on there. I don't know what the board's going to choose to do with that, because it's very minor, but they may act on it. But right now, no, we didn't do this rate study to study time of use. And quite honestly, the reason is just because we're growing so fast. At 6% growth, it's just hard to have a good data set to really like identify whether time of use is going to be good for all ratepayers, or are just second home users going to benefit from it, you know? And so we really need to like calm the growth for a little bit, and then we can really dive into whether or not we want to change the entire rate structure.
Anything else for Jason? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3, time over to Brandon Clough of Wasatch County. Really appreciate his time just to let us know what he'll be doing here in the town, and we'll just turn the time over to Brandon.
Brandon Clough, Wasatch County Public Works Director. I just wanted to come, since Daniel is our neighbor, I didn't just want to do this, I wanted to kind of give you a heads up if you had any concerns, voice your opinion. County owns a large chunk of land just directly west of the gravel pit out there, Neil Hilton's old property. And back in the day, there was a gentleman's agreement that as long as he was alive, he could do with it what he wanted. So we couldn't really do with it. Now he has since passed, and we are running out of room, as Jason spoke with about the growth, for our chipping projects and stockpiling gravel. We don't have really anywhere that we can put it anymore. We used to put it down at the old rodeo grounds, which are now ball diamonds. So what we're looking to do is directly west. There's a parcel right there that's unirrigated. You can kind of see the will line next to this blue. We'd like to go over there and be able to fence or Jersey barrier off this area and kind of create a stockyard for gravel, cobble rock, chips for our chip projects, possible road mill tailings. As we reclaim the pit, we have a 5-acre mining permit, and we are to that point to where we've got to reclaim at least an acre before we move on, which we've been doing on the hillside and filling in the hole, which is not leaving us a lot of room to make gravel, screen gravel. So what we'd like to do is screen the gravel and put it over on this side. Just wanted to see if you guys had any concerns.
Is that screening that right here on this west end here where the wheel line is, or is it this?
Yeah, that.
Okay,
That's
this
that
end.
parcel there.
Okay.
We're gonna be working out an agreement with a gentleman that has his horses in there now. There's never been an agreement with him, but we're gonna leave that portion because he does irrigate it and keep it going.
Good access there, isn't it?
So Brandon, do you guys own, does the county own this property?
We own all of it.
You own all
We're
of it?
almost down to Sullivan's.
And then you just
No, we
lease to
don't.
a few horse owners?
Yeah, there's never even been a
Lease?
lease. So, it's something county attorneys are gonna be looking at as
Those
well.
gentleman agreements are slowly fading away.
This one snuck up on me. And like, I spoke with Chip earlier in the week when I was getting on the agenda, and even Daniel, you know, if for any reason you had chip projects, and I see they're stockpiled in the cul-de-sacs and whatever, I'm more than willing to
Make a little pile in the
make a
corner.
pile over here when you have your project. It's easy for the contractors to get to.
That was very generous, and I certainly help out, I'm sure, sometime down the road. Don't know when, but I'm sure it will. Any questions for Brandon with regards to what they're wanting to do down there? And
What would be the negative part of that?
he just let us know. He just let us know. what he-
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll take care of the road. I mean, it may get beat up going across there. I'm sure you guys have been great to take care of Big Hollow Road, so I'm sure all that will be taken care of. You're not planning on a crushing plant?
No,
Okay.
no. We have a small little shaker screen and a grizzly that we run through on this side,
Okay.
and we just make a map of what we do for Northfields, Cascade Springs.
Sounds good.
Looks like a plus to me.
Okay,
Thank you, Brandon.
thank
Appreciate
you.
you presenting that to us. Item number 4, Evan Childs with Century 21 regarding general interpretation and feel of the council on possible changes on Clarence property. So, spend the time over to you, Evan.
Bring four of these. This is the property boundaries. What our intentions are is to, my client wants to turn this into 4 lots of 8 acres each. It's a little over 32 acres. So what they're proposing is to put an access point in here, and then have each, there's about approximately 9 acres right here, at the base of the mountain. And then each owner would have like 2 acres each. And then I've also found some other properties that was nearby. Yes, what this is it's a P160, and we're asking to see if we can bring it down to a P8. And in the area, there's much lower acreage than this property is. We kind of don't know why they won't okay it for 8 acres with,
And it's all hillside, right?
this, it's hillside right about here.
Where is this?
Going up.
This is going up the mountain. If you look over here, this is where the pit is, the gravel pit.
Oh, okay, so this is just further.
Yeah.
The gravel pit over there by the
Yeah.
gun club.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about here.
Right.
Okay.
And this, we found this was 0.90 acres, a little over an acre. And, well, my client is basically asking if we can bump it down to a P8 instead of a P160. Wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well,
Means that all the surrounding areas have less than 8 acre lots.
but the hills from here is this way, correct?
Oh, to the
It's
west.
this
No.
way, this way.
So it's about, you take your hand,
The hill starts
the
there.
hill starts there.
I was just
So
talking about that.
each acre will probably get 2 acres each, a little more than 2 acres.
Usable.
Usable, and then the rest is mountainside. So it'd be pretty much elongated slices of land. And then,
Yeah, I mean, you got P60 all the way around there, haven't we?
Yeah, everything on the other side.
For like, since the county.
Yeah, we haven't changed that zone, Coast County zoning. We adopted when we were given town in 2007.
and I understand that, you know, you wanna keep it kind of low on the housing. 4 more extra lots probably wouldn't take up that more. And right now, currently, this is just for cattle. And it's a green belt, so the taxes are way low. And they're probably bringing in a little more revenue for the city if they would allow for extra lots on that property.
Now, is this a proposed road or is this already?
This is already existing.
The whole thing, okay.
Yeah.
It's dirt right now or?
This is dirt, this is paved.
Okay.
But it's narrow, isn't it? Isn't it?
It is fairly narrow,
It
yes.
wouldn't meet road standards, I don't think, or lowest road standard, would it?
You know, what is is it is it 80 feet wide? How, what is
I
it?
would have to double check.
I know that other areas in Utah is about 80 feet
I
wide.
think we're quite 80.
It's a 50-foot wide right of way.
Is it
That
50
road
foot?
doesn't, that road wouldn't meet the asphalt width without some modifications.
Okay, if
Well,
they,
what is your road, like maybe,
it's maybe a 20,
yeah,
so we would have to widen that up. If my clients did widen that road up to meet this, because there is enough room there to widen it up easily.
Widen out this road too, or just down here?
Just widen up this road to
All the way?
all the way out here. And then just give 2 acres on the flat side and the rest on the hillside. And if there's any specific requirements you would want for that to go in, I'd definitely go to the 50 feet wide road.
Me speaking, I would just need to see more of the, I mean, I see the road and the lot and the details, and see the ramifications of, you know, what's usable. You're saying there's about 2 acres usable out of each lot.
Yeah.
And see how that
Yeah, so
plays out with our whole.
this is mountain space, no, this is mountain space right here, and this is flat land right there.
I'd like to see some discussion on that over a little bit of time.
Is this where the house is currently right here?
That is correct, that's where the, yeah. we just thought it was kind of ridiculous to have a P160, because you really can't build anything in here at all. But if we bring it down to P1, P8, make more sense. And then it'd probably bring in enough revenue there, and there would be much more access to it.
Well, the process would certainly require a zone change, and I don't know how long, we've been working on some stuff that's taken us quite a while with regards to code, but take a zone change to maybe think about doing some kind of project like this, and so. I don't know, I'm sure you're asking for our opinion, and our opinion's usually looked at after an application's made, and then we know they're both serious, and we usually have some kind of a plan, more of a set plan by the time they send the
Okay.
application.
All right,
That'd be my comment.
so you'd want a plan made out.
I don't know, just, I mean, if this is something you want to go for, do, then, you know, it's applicant driven, so
Okay.
don't go one way or the other as far as for or against it until I see kind of a little more detail myself.
Gotcha. All right, so
Anybody else on the council?
I'm with you.
is that,
I'd give enough time also to weigh it out on there. You know, is this gonna be a road that is gonna be a private road? Is it going to require the snow removal also? Is it good, anything else?
I would recommend that each owner has their own snow removal. That doesn't inflict any more liability on the city.
Is this being plowed off?
The homeowner plows it.
The homeowner plows it at this point already.
Yeah. So I probably wouldn't put any more strain on the city than it is right now. So-
Yeah, applicant can then go from there and start.
Well, just like President John asked, as far as road, private road, not road, they're gonna be, once you apply, I would think you'd have a few more specifics that you're gonna try to want to implement in your direction, and may or may not work for council, but we'll wait and see.
Okay, when was that P160?
I'd have to go back and look. I believe it was 1976, so.
1976. It's been like that for a long time. All right, is there any more questions for me? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 5, discussion of franchise agreement with All West Communications. We have a couple of copies, 2 different copies of a franchise agreement. Jack, I'd like to turn them over to you, and maybe have some comments for you or not, as far as 2 different versions, and maybe explain why one is maybe probably different than the other one.
Jack Walkenhurst with All West Communications. What you have is, one is a communication system franchise, so basically telecom services, and then the other one is a cable TV franchise. So that's why there's 2. And the differences being, the telecom franchise agreement is more under the, it's more directed by state law. And the cable TV is more wide open. We generally match what we do with other municipalities, keep it fairly, consistent. The telecom, as I mentioned, is governed more from the state tax commission. And so there's certain things that need to be there with that. And that's why we keep them separate. And so we would have 2 separate franchise agreements.
I know when you and I spoke that we may have a question for tonight. I kind of indicated we probably need to listen to it for about a month, and then probably have it on the agenda again.
Totally understandable, yeah.
Before we let you go, though, I would, if anyone has any questions now that might come up, I know a couple of council members that spend a little time and might have a couple of questions today, but I think you'll probably have more fully questions next month.
And that's fine. Just a couple of things that I highlighted, I guess, when I went through them again. know, we would still need to have excavation permits. Any work that we did within the city boundaries would still be governed by excavation permits, inspections, things like that. Insurance, of course, any requirements that way, it all talks about it here. Once a year at least, we would come to, you know, the city engineer or the council or whatever with our plans for the year, kind of what we're looking at, so you know ahead of time kind of what our plans are, and also we would want to coordinate any construction projects that the town had that, you know, we might want to get something done before a road was done or something like that. So, okay.
So we have these agreements. I would like council to look these over and make sure they feel comfortable for next month so we can discuss it and see if this will work out for all West and our community. Eric, did you have anything today or talk about it next month? Or?
Yeah, I got a few if you wanna do them.
Okay. I've got a copy of each, so you can just shoot me which
Okay,
you're
so-
looking at in the section.
So the one I'm looking at right now is the communication system.
Okay.
And so what I'm looking at as I went through here, and I didn't get all the way through it,
Okay.
actually thought it was the same one. It calls for, you will be turning as-built plans and maps in a form content prescribed by the town engineer. Ryan, you should be aware of that.
I think that's great. I wish the other ones did.
Yeah, it'd be a CAD type, you know, CAD type drawing.
Shape plan?
Yeah, yep.
The other one was that on that same page, at the bottom of 4, it's asking us if we have an excavation open by anybody in the town, that we allow them to come in and use that excavation to lay conduit in.
Well, and as it also mentions there, if it makes sense, if it is allowed by ordinance, things like that, just trying to not have multiple trenches. You know, if there's something going on and it can be a shared type trench, you know, just ask for that to be considered. And the same way, if All West was putting in something and the city or the town said, hey, we need, you know, something there as well, just work together on things like that. You know, a water line, a gas line, it may not work, but power, low voltage, something like that.
So we have, throughout the town, we have a specifications for our road. This document multiple times speaks to as good of condition. So once an excavation takes place, we want it to be up to our standard. So I know that that's probably a little bit of a, once we trench across the road, we don't want it to be back the way it was. We want it to be to our standards.
Well, and there's places you do too. For example, Little Sweden Road has over 2 feet of asphalt. So as good a condition would require 2 feet of asphalt,
I guess so.
but the town standard's 3 inches.
If-
So it works both ways.
It does. And, you know, for the most part, we would want to bore any road crossing, but sometimes you try and you can't bore, so, yeah, it would just be something that we would need to look at when the plans were done and turned in and we talked about what we want to do. Yeah, that's something that would say, hey, there's 2 feet of asphalt here, think about this. Yeah.
Okay.
And normally, as with any construction project, it normally ends up better than it was. You know, as you go through and clean up. As
You
good
haven't
as-
driven down our roads, have you?
Well, you're probably not much different than most.
They
small-
just went through and made
smaller
them a lot
communities.
better.
Yeah.
Or a lot better than Salt Lake.
Most small communities struggle with how to take care of the roads, and as I listened to the previous item, and, okay, are we gonna have to take care of it, is it gonna be private, I understand.
Okay, also in number 9, section 9 of that one is promptly. Promptly says it will be, franchise agrees to promptly complete all restoration work. That's pretty open-ended, promptly. Who's defining promptly? Me or you?
That's generally defined. It's generally defined in the permit, you know, in the excavation permit, which,
There would be an explanation to that, that, I mean, timing would be no longer than or something.
yeah, you know, it would generally be spelled out in the excavation permit, which is a town document.
Okay,
And, you know, generally what we see is, you know, you can start the project on this date and it's gotta be done by this date, type of a thing.
okay. So we can take care of that in the excavation permit on this one.
I think our permit speaks to that already, doesn't it, about how long you can leave cuts open?
I believe it does.
Well, and, you know, cuts open trench along the road, you know, clean up if you're moving gravel or something like that, it's gotta be put back in a certain amount of time, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, section 17 talks about a 3.5% franchise, but the other document talks about a 5%.
Well, and this is one of the things with the communication one, that 3.5% is spelled out by the state. You know, it will be 3.5%. On the other one, it can be 1 to 5%. So,
I don't want to scare you, Jack, but this is the good one we're going through first.
and that's fine. That is fine. Yeah, that's fine.
And you know, like, I thought of just hitting a few highlights as far as going through both and doing it all now. I wasn't really planning on doing as much as.
Yeah.
No, I'll build it.
Okay. The attorney's fees thing scared me a little bit.
Let's go with that.
Okay. The prevailing party is entitled to recover all their attorney's fees if we end up going to court. So that was just a red flag for us, and that was my biggest, that was in that document, and this is I like this one a lot better than this other one, because it's more, this one here is more open-ended, and like you said, I know state law is involved with that. But if I look up at the grant of franchise, the grant of franchise does not require you to get an excavation permit for on this other document. It says that we're granting you the right and privilege to engage in business operating, providing cable TV, and for that purpose to erect, install, construct, repair, replace, reconstruct, maintain, and repaint in, on, and over, under, upon, across, along any streets laid out or dedicated, and all extensions thereof. So this one doesn't speak to an excavation permit.
It certainly can.
Okay.
So, you know, this was a starting point. It certainly can. So
Okay.
there's nothing set in stone here,
Okay.
so.
All right.
Yeah.
And I understand. I just,
Yep.
that comes right out. Okay, so on, what are we on? Section 2C. We do have Comcast in the town that serves some of our residents.
Mhm.
I don't down on my end, but I know
Right.
some do. So when I read this, it makes us go get also a written agreement with them within 60 days of signing an agreement with you. Is that correct? Am I reading that correct in C?
Yeah, normally we don't come into a town without a franchise agreement. I don't know what Comcast does, but, you know, normally they would have a franchise agreement too.
They
But,
just came and did it.
Yeah, we just,
yeah, I don't know on that, but
okay.
basically we're just trying to keep things on even. Usually with a franchise agreement, if similar companies are asking for franchise agreements, they normally get similar types of agreements. You know, you're not letting one do one thing that you're not letting the other do, or restricting vast resort.
Right.
I can't speak to what you have with
Yeah.
Comcast, but.
We don't have
Yeah.
anything with
Okay.
Comcast. That's what brought that up, because it
Yeah.
looks like we got 60 days to do something.
Well, and that can be discussed, I think. Our main thing is not wanting to be on an unlevel playing field.
Right.
You know, just like you're asking us for certain things, and we're just, I guess, asking for a level playing field with whoever else is here of similar.
I'm glad you brought that up, because coming right up here is a level playing field.
Yeah.
So the agreement was for 15 years, I got that highlighted. Section 5, again, that was to the town standards on number 2, section 5.2, disturbance of a paved area, we have already discussed that. Trimming the trees in the town, typically these are a lower hanging cable. And so they're asking on section, I think I'm on 5, 5. And so they want to be able to trim the trees down to a lower. So what is the policy of All West? Power company has their policy, I believe it's 5 feet of the lines. What is your policy? Good question, huh?
We have such a small amount of facilities in the air that I don't think we've actually defined that.
Okay,
We certainly can, but we have very little in the air.
okay.
Are you planning, and you mentioned last time you came here, are you planning for most of, if you come into Daniel, that it's gonna be underground as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so section 7.2,
But we can address that
Okay.
however, you know,
All right.
so that you're comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
So-
7 and 2?
7.2, and John, you'll have to do this one, it's a math one. Whenever the grantee shall receive written requests for service from at least 15 subscribers within 400 cable meters, 1,300 feet, of its aerial trunk cable, or from at least 25 subscribers within 400 cable meters, 1,300 cable feet, of its underground trunk cable, it shall extend the system to such subscribers. I don't see us ever hitting that number, because we have RA5 zoning. I don't see us ever.
Great question.
And this is a pretty standard paragraph in a cable TV franchise agreement. I mean, we can definitely look at that, but at the same time, you know, those are kind of the numbers that are out there to be able to make it work
Right.
if we're forced into a build situation.
Yeah. Well, I can almost say that you won't be forced here, because you'll have a hard time scraping up how many people within that 50.
Well, and that kind of brings me to the question I have,
Yeah.
since we're so kind of spread out more, and you may have fair demand to have it, but they're spread out farther than what Eric's talking about. How do our residents get service when
Well,
they're spread out too far?
as we come into any area, just like we would with any area, you know, we look at it and say, okay, what makes sense? And if we come into an area, we want to serve it. And so I would say that, you know, as you said, yours is rural, you're not going to pass 25 homes in a 1,300-foot section.
Right.
And our numbers do not require that. You know, when we look at, okay, how many do we have to pass to be able to make this work? I mean, we can adjust that.
Okay.
We're not looking at it saying, okay, if we don't have 25 in a quarter mile, which is basically what 1,300 feet is, we're not gonna come into the town. We know that it's not gonna be that way.
Okay.
We're looking at it and saying, okay, as long as we can build it in a systematic way and see how things go, we'll build it. But we just don't want to be tied into, okay, we've got, just for example, 2 that want service in this 1,300-foot section. Okay, maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't. We just don't want to be tied down to that necessarily, but
Right.
understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Most of the areas that we serve, some areas, there's probably 1 home in that distance or less.
Yeah, coming from the base, and
Well, I mean, we're up in Rich County,
mhm.
which is very rural. We're up in areas in Wyoming, which is very rural.
You've been there and done that?
Yeah, we've been there, done that. That's where our roots are at, so.
And I think the reason that that sounds out so bad is because 7.3, when the density doesn't exist, less than density, it becomes a basis of cost. So somebody has to pay to have that run. So I think that would be burdensome if we sign a franchise agreement, that the only way they can get it is buying that. So,
Well, and there again, we're not saying that's the only way it's gonna happen. But, you know, we may have a build-out plan, say, okay, these are the areas that we'll build out first and get out to this point.
Do you have anything even remotely set up that, as far as a plan for Daniel?
Not yet. Basically looking at, as I mentioned the first time we met, Mayor, some things there along Daniels Road, just looking at